Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. My name is Brandon. I am here with my good friend Matt, who has been busier than a chicken running from a fox. He is a man about town. I always appreciate that with Matt, he might disappear for days on end, but never worry. He will turn up. It's not like that hiker that disappears and then they find the body in the snow crevasse 27.
Well, sometimes it feels like that. I do like the analogy, though, because I'm imagining a chicken trying to get away, and it's just chaos. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's just trying
going
to
from place to
move,
place,
and sometimes I do feel like that's what I'm doing. I look back, I'm like, what have I been doing all day?
Well, we oftentimes talk about in pre-production or just when we're chatting, we talk about the show topics that we want to do. And, the whole point of this is to give people an idea of how they can move merch, baby. In fact, I had a conversation with a friend that was staying with us, and he's I won't say who he works for, but he's worked for a high-end brand company. And so he gets all this extra stuff and he can't do anything with it. So he sells it on eBay sometimes. And he has sold probably 1,000 items. And I was mentioning you. He was talking about something. And I said, well, the irony, what I've learned is that eBay is set up to protect the seller, or the buyer, not the seller. Because somebody had some problem with something, or there was a hole in a hat or something. And it just turned into this debacle. It's the first time he's had that happen. I said, ooh, my friend Matt could tell you a story or two.
I mean, eBay will tell you. eBay will say, no, this is set up to protect both parties. But I can tell you as someone who, I've been selling on eBay since 2000, so 25 years. I've been doing it full-time for 6 years. And by full-time, folks, and this is not a boast, but to give you an idea, like, well, what does Rusty, what does Matt really do? This will be my 3rd year of doing 6-figure sales on just eBay's platforms. I do 6-figure sales on eBay, and I pay a lot, $20,000 to $30,000 just to the postal service every year just to ship items. And so in order to, unless you're just incredibly lucky or you somehow have an end to some sort of like really high end, if you're selling, Arpels, Van Cleef and Arpels jewelry, which are, $8,000, $10,000 pieces per time, which I'm not doing. A lot of my stuff's $10, $20 items. Multiples of thousands of items sell every year, and a lot of those listings involve multiple items in one listing. And I can tell you, as someone who both buys, who sources on eBay and sells on eBay, there is no comparison. The system is set up to protect the buyer pretty much at all costs, to the point where even as a seasoned seller on this platform, people still utilize the system, find loopholes, whether they know it or not ahead of time. They manipulate things, and there's loss. I lose over $1,000, let's say. Between $1,000 and $5,000 a year is a loss for me because of bad interactions, people trying to scam or different things. And that happens because of the way that the system is set up. It's set up to automatically side with the buyer most times, automatically issue refunds to the buyer most of the time. And if you want your money back as the seller, you then have to do a lot of work, multiple calls, multiple people you talk to, jump through a bunch of hoops, sign affidavits, and then they'll come back with an email that says, we just couldn't tell on this if you were right or not. So we're just leaving it as it is. And that's it. After you've spent 7 phone calls and 4 more hours of your life, all for nothing. And that's happened to me multiple times. So not to go on a deep, dive there, but 100%. eBay, again, I still utilize eBay. I hope to one day not have to. I hope that there's will be a place, either my own website or something else that I can sell and do the same amount of business. I haven't found it yet. Listeners, if you know of something, we'll talk about another couple of platforms, maybe even on this episode that I'm keen to investigate more to see. It would be a different process. It's unknown to me at this time if it would require more work or not. Everything when you transition does, but once I got into it. But yeah, so I didn't mean to cut off your story, but he's selling stuff and
No, I think that's what I said. I think you just summed it up. It's funny you were saying, as you were saying that, I was thinking about like whatever we do, I use different platforms to record and do different things, and they all have a plus and a minus to them. There are some things that are really good at this. There are some things that are really good at that. Very rarely do you ever come across anything that actually works completely
right.
well. And so, I think that eBay is about mass quantity, that there is the largest platform. I've shared my own very limited experience with eBay, and it was a terrible experience, and I will never sell anything on eBay again. I should say that, I don't sell that much stuff, but, and I have this really good friend who does do that work, so I oftentimes just turn stuff over to him just to deal with the frustration that I don't want to deal with. But yeah, it is. It was just funny. He said that, and I was like, well, those are. I said, do you realize that if they send it back to you, you have to pay for the shipping? He's
I
like,
do.
what? I'm like, yeah,
Oftentimes,
dude, it's
yeah.
it's like, and I again, like, I'm sure every situation is different. Every person's experiences are different. It would be interesting to have a guy like that on to talk about how he sold and what his experiences are on eBay, because I think that's. With him, you have to be very careful because he, these companies that he works for. Anyway, I'll have to figure that out. But it would be an interesting thing to think about how everybody has a different experience and sort of what's the universal. Is there a universal on this?
Right.
All right, so let's talk about. As I mentioned, I was having this conversation. I think about what we're going to do. We usually don't leave it out till just like, what are we going to do today? We usually have an idea what we want to do.
Yeah.
There have been times in the past where we've been like, oh my gosh, we got to record today. We got to come up with something. And it is ironic, too, that we do this gratis for people, and yet we still treat it like, oh, we have to get this out, and if we don't, we've failed. So we decided today, because I was thinking about, well, Matt's been back from jolly old England for a while, and I'm kind of wondering if he has some stories, because you're so busy. I'm always constantly like, oh, where is that character?
By the way, am I looking more youthful after my face dunking experience in the river in Scotland? Am I looking a little bit?
Well, it's a glow. It's definitely a glow.
Aura?
There's a sheen and aura, sort of a magical glow that's off of the urine.
It could be that I'm younger. It could be that I'm about to die, and that's why you're seeing it. I'm not sure.
The urine waters of the Slough Flainic, or whatever the river is called.
That might explain the odor that's been around here lately. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. Well, we decided to talk about what Matt's been doing right today, because he had a very interesting experience, and I've been pushing him on this consignment type world that he's been delving into, and you always kind of wonder how things are going. But I'd love for you to tell the story that you told me a little bit, obviously in a little bit more detail. But
I want to do that.
Happened.
I want to do that. And I've been plenty busy, so I have plenty of things to talk about. I have a handful of things that we're going to talk about that sold, so that we can stick with, what did sell. Things have sold. But if you'll do me a kindness, and first, and really I'm doing this to lift you up on a pedestal a little bit, because what the listeners don't know is that we had a meeting recently, which, again, because of both of our schedules, primarily mine, it's hard to get away. It's also summer, taking kids to different places, camps and stuff, it becomes a challenge. But we got together, and part of that, well, the meeting was incredibly helpful to me, at least. We were kind of road mapping and thinking of what we're going to do on this podcast in the future, which hopefully will be good. The product will be good for everyone. But I was really almost using Brandon as a sounding board too, to get feedback on, like, this is where I'm at right now. These are the challenges. These are the possibilities. We talk on the last episode, we talked about, does it make one possibility is, do I move this business to a brick and mortar? Do I keep it as it is, or do I do something else? And if you listen to the last episode, you'll know that, at least for today, my conclusion is that's probably not the right move for me right now, for a few different reasons. Maybe you could speak a moment to, after you heard what I was going through, what my pain points are, and what I'm looking to do the end of the story is you more were pushing me, or you were kind of guiding me to maybe the right answer isn't adding another cost, adding another store, like a brick and mortar store, adding more complications and more cost to your business. Maybe it's scaling back. Maybe you make a change with your product. Maybe
Hold on,
you make a
Matt.
change
Hold
with
on.
who
I got
you're.
a bear in my backyard. Hold on.
Hey, listen, happens to me every day.
He's under my house right now. Gosh darn you. I don't know what he does under there.
You've got to leave this on the video portion. Yesterday, I'm eating lunch at my kitchen table, and a bear has come up onto the deck, like up to a second story, and is like poking around. I have to go out and
He's literally
holler at
under
it.
my deck. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, what most people don't know, I did go out and chase the bear out from underneath my house.
Thank goodness.
It's he's kind of a mangy fellow. We have about 5 or 6 of them that kind of roam through periodically. They're like giant raccoons. So anyone that lives here in Western North Carolina knows that the bears are prolific. They're everywhere. They are.
What does it say about you and your house that the mangiest of the bears are gravitating and drawn to?
Hey, listen, that just happens to be a mangy one. We have some really good bears.
Well manicured.
Our trash is as good as any other trash, Matt. I will tell you that right now.
Trash is trash.
Yeah, they love trash.
One person's trash is another bear's treasure.
That's right.
In Western North Carolina.
Well, and I read this whole thing about why we have so many bears here, because people are dumb and they leave their trash out and the bears eat it.
Yeah.
And we have a very large bear population, because most bears will have between 1 and 2 cubs in a litter, and usually only about 1 makes it to adulthood. But here in Western North Carolina, specifically Asheville, Swannanoa, Black Mountain, places where there's a fairly large population of people, there's so much food for them that they oftentimes will have 3 and 4 cubs. So we just have a lot of bears. And
I'm surprised to hear that there's only a 50% survival rate, because, shoot, there's a lot of bears around here.
There are a lot of bears. That's the crazy part. And I try to, I leave them alone, they leave me alone. But when they get under my house, I'm afraid they're going to kind of go in there and be like, ooh.
On days that I work up in the area of my home that we live in, which isn't that often, I'm usually down in my office, I will see, and this is just out of the side of my eye, not me being outside, 2 to 3 sightings a day. That's just what I'm seeing when I'm upstairs. There may be others, and those may all be different bears.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how many. I mean, and by the way, just for perspective for everybody, I live 5 minutes from downtown Asheville, so I do not live out in the country per se. I do have this beautiful back field that's by my house and everything, and so, but it's just they're just part and parcel to our landscape.
You're calling
here.
that a field behind your house?
Well,
That's
I
a
don't
field.
know what you would. I would call it a verdant garden, Matt.
Oh, okay.
It is. There's a whole story behind that giant swath of land behind my house, but it is, and I do love the bears. I think they're a wonderful thing, but I'm kind of beginning to wonder if we don't have a real bear problem. They're very docile. They're very friendly. I call them giant raccoons. They just kind of, they don't cause any problems.
Until they crawl into your vehicle or your home when you're not home and trash it, which has happened. I know multiple individuals whose cars have been totaled by leaving food in there that the animal smells. They get in, the door shuts, they can't get out, and they destroy the car.
You're trying to get out.
Correct. I know another family locally that left on a vacation for a couple weeks, left a window open or like a screen or something. Bear crawled into the home. They had to be out of the home for a month for the amount of damage that was done in that home by this bear. I mean, it's, I'm not saying that it's scary to live around. It's not like we're living in a horror movie necessarily, right. But
they're not outside your front door.
You have to be careful.
Yeah, you do have to be careful. They are definitely a nuisance in terms of things like that. Typically, they don't bother anybody. You don't bother them. But
you go outside, you clap at them, and then they run off.
They look at you. They look at you like, well, whatever, whoever you are, buddy. And then they always have this look that they give you. It's
I'll
like,
come eat that trash at night.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, dude. All right, whatever. You got me. All right, this time, buddy. Anyway, so I did just chase a bear out from underneath my house.
Fantastic.
It is part and parcel to living where we live. But let's get back to the story here.
And you can choose how much of that to leave in. But basically, what I was getting at is
gold.
you were
podcast gold.
you were basically giving me some guidance, and I liked it, and I'm putting it into practice. Why don't you share whatever you would want to share about that interaction, and then I'll tell people what I'm doing even today to put that into action.
You mean the conversation we had about whether to have the brick and mortar and why you should not?
Yeah, and the idea of what are the types of things maybe it makes more sense for me to focus on? Maybe what's the right type of clientele that I should
Yeah,
operate
yeah.
with?
So one thing that I realized, and we had a very long conversation about this, hours. And one thing I realized is that, like in any business, there is the what is lucrative and what do you enjoy doing. And I think that's a really important thing to look at and think about. I have some parts of what I do that are pretty lucrative, but I do not like them as much as other things that I do. So I'm always kind of balancing how much time do I spend where. And ultimately, people say, well, of course you would spend more time in the place that makes you more money. I actually don't think that's true. It depends on who you are as a person, but I love doing this kind of stuff. I don't even necessarily care about the on air stuff as much as I just love being part of the creation of the podcast and working with you and other people on creating things, creating interesting things. I consider it art, and I consider myself an artist. I know that sounds so, cheesy, but I really do think of it as art. And I love that part. There are other parts that I don't love so much. The business part where you have to constantly crank and do whatever. But we had talked, and you were talking about, I might get this, and there's a store, and I'm like, well, Matt, if you do that, that means that you're not going to be able to do as many of the things that you really like to do. So we sort of brainstormed like, what's the magic tipping point? When you have the time to create the Rusty content, that's actually fairly lucrative if you
It can
have the
be.
time. It can be. There's no guarantee, by the way, in any of this stuff. There's no guarantee that if you open a brick and mortar shop that it would be successful. There's no
Correct.
guarantee that wherever you spend your time. So it is always a challenge and a risk when you do this stuff. So what I basically said is, look, people are calling you up to sell things,
Hmm.
left and right, calling you up. And you don't have to carry any of that inventory. I didn't realize you actually picked up the inventory and brought it home. But you don't have to buy the inventory. You don't have to
Correct.
spend hours on the road to go search for the inventory.
Hmm.
You can, in fact, go look at it and say, I do want to sell this or not. I think you had mentioned that you were kind of taking it on sort of, sure, I'll sell it for you. And now you're more like, hey, listen, I'm getting pretty busy. I'm going to pick and choose what
And
I
in
want to sell.
contrast, folks, the what he's talking about is driving around for say 6 hours in a day,
Mm-hmm.
maybe coming home with 15 to 20 items. Maybe I spend $500, maybe I spend $1,000 plus gas, plus if I'm on the road and I forgot to bring something to eat. You know what I mean? So that it adds up. Versus I make one trip, it takes an hour. I go straight to a person's house and come home, and I come home with a vehicle entirely full of inventory. So it saved me 5 hours of time. It saved me gas money. It saved all of the cost of buying things. Now, I'm going to, whenever that sells, I only make 30 or 40% of that, whatever I've worked out with them, right, as a split, instead of 100% of whatever the profit is. But I didn't have to spend my own money on the items. I'm just working on the activities that directly relate to the sale of a product as opposed to searching for a product, that kind of thing. So that's the difference we're talking about. And it can be significant. That time savings and the money savings can be significant depending on which one of those paths you're going down.
Yeah, and we really unpacked the numbers and looked at that and said, okay, so maybe you only get 30%. And kind of where I pushed you, you're a nice guy. And you're like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, you might need to raise the price a little bit. And
Yeah,
you might need to say no.
yeah,
Because ultimately at the end of the day, it's funny, you look at that and you say, I remember my dad gave me some great advice early on. He owned a little company, and he was like, son, people will always try to nickel in. They'll call you up and say, why are you charging me X amount of dollars for X? And he's like, well, because I have to pay payroll, I have to pay for the phones, I have to pay for, there's a lot of costs that are incurred in any business that are sort of invisible, and it's really important that you spreadsheet out those costs.
yeah. And
Really important.
I think one of the things you helped me to consider and think on more, and this is, I have to put a mirror in front of me and say, if I'm being honest with myself, what are my strengths in what I'm doing? And I think, and you can fire right back, argue or agree. I think my communication skills, my relational skills with people, direct relational skills, and then the knowledge I have of the things that I'm looking at and selling in my research. Those are the things that set me apart. And those are the things that help me to, garner rapport with people and them feel comfortable handing me over potentially very valuable things and me selling them for them. What I'm not great at, as you mentioned, is saying no when maybe I should, is to, delay things, or, and I'm not the greatest at business in the sense that I'm going to get the absolute best price for me. I want it to be a win-win. So I'm more likely to give up more on my own to make sure that they're happy with the interaction, which in some ways that's good. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But what I end up finding is that slowly over time, I end up taking on more projects, more work, but I don't end up seeing the increase in the monetary value of what I'm doing than I probably should. Would you say that's accurate based on our
Yeah,
conversation?
yes, very much so. And I think one of the things that I got some advice on too, as well as business, was I was charging kind of an hourly rate in
Mm-hmm.
my work, and it was like, oh, you had to keep track of every minute that you spent on a thing. In both of our businesses, you could get something done in an hour, or it could take you 8 hours. There's no
Right.
way to quantify necessarily how much
And they
something's
shouldn't
going to
have to
take
pay
you.
for my inefficiency, right? If I'm not efficient with it, why should they suffer? It's not like I'm an
Right.
attorney sending an email and I'm going to quote you a price for the email. I don't have the time to be doing that either. It doesn't make sense for what I'm doing.
Right. So what the advice I got was just charge a fee, a one-time fee, and then do the very best job you can to meet within the parameters of that so that you can make money and everybody's happy. And I
Hmm.
think that's the same point of view, is that if you're pulling yourself in 8,000 different directions, I see that a lot with our production schedule. It's like, you're like, I had to run down to Charlotte today, or I had to do this, or I had to do that.
Hmm.
It's like trying to find a way to create a pattern of work that is sustainable.
Yeah.
And that might mean you need to charge 10% more. You
Yeah.
might lose some customers, but you will gain in time, and you'll gain in the
If I
quality of the work
increase
you're
by
doing.
10% and I lose 50% of my customers, that 10% more I'm getting from the others might end up being somewhat
Right.
equivalent in what I'm getting, but I'm working a lot less. I have a lot less stuff I'm having to store. That reduces one of my problems, which is storage right now. I've taken so much stuff from people that I probably shouldn't have. And you know how I know? Because looking around at it, I'm thinking I wouldn't have bought that to resell. If it had been me finding it, I wouldn't have. I would have been like that. It's not going to sell for $15. They want 4 or 5 for it. It's not worth my time or my money. Yet, and part of this, as I explained, that doing this consignment piece, I've not paid any money to market myself. This is all word of mouth. And
Hmm.
so part of my thinking was the first 2 or 3 months, well, just do a little bit more, go a little bit further with people, do a little more, give them good experiences. Now I have a group of people who are happy customers. They're going to spread the word. They'll be a reference for me if I need it in the future. This is all good. This is how you build. This is one of those grassroots ways of building a business when you're doing it locally with people. That's good. But I'm now past that point. I'm already to the point where I've got so much stuff and I'm working with enough people that I don't need to do that anymore. So why do that? Is kind of your point that you're getting at. Now it's time to kick it into gear. Let's make this sustainable now. That means maybe you're more choosy with the product that you get. You say I'm 2 months out. Then they're like, well, it's too long. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Would have helped you. It just you caught me at this time. The other thing is I'm now starting to refine, and I've wanted to kind of do this for years, but it was more like, well, when you see an opportunity to make money, why pass up on it? But now I'm really trying to refine the things I sell. So instead of just saying, hey, what do you got? It could be anything. I can say, I want to hear what you have. But just so you know, these are the things that I'm primarily selling and interested in. And then I list off 7, 8 different categories of things. Now, they might not have a lot of that. They have some. I'll look at the other stuff too. And if they happen to have one thing that's outside of that, but it seems to have like great value, then yeah, I'll consider that. But that should be a secondary notion for me and not a primary piece of the business from now forward. And I like that idea. So I'm thinking a combination of selling for people and having freeing up some time so that I can still go back to buying some things myself, because that's the fun part, searching, finding things. And
Right.
so that I'm not just in the weeds locating items, packaging up, sending off packages every day. and wanting to like stab myself in the face, that kind of thing, because that's not the fun part of it.
Right, and we've talked about that. If you can sell a watch or a bracelet or something, and it makes you $5,000 because it's a really valuable piece, as opposed to selling 500 other items for $20, well, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You want to find that. I mean, one of the things that I think everyone needs to look at when they do a business. You're right. When you first start, you got to kind of take anything. You're building a business. You're trying to make it work. But as you develop in a business and you sort of set yourself up as a reputable place and you've done a good job, think about the contractor rule. You can call, when contractors are really, really busy and you can't find one, you can get a contractor to come to your house and give you a bid on anything. But what they do as a rule of thumb is they'll like, yeah, I could do that fence for $25,000. Because they're like, hey, listen, if they want it that bad and they're going to pay me that much money, then I can move things around. And I think that that's a little bit about what we're talking here in terms of, saying either, hey, it's going to be 6 months before I can get to you. And if you're cool with that, I will put you on the spreadsheet or the calendar. And when we get to that 6 month mark, we'll come. B is be way more selective in the material that you take in. Say, I could take half of the items that you have, but the other half I just can't sell. It's not worth it. Or C is raise the amount you take for things. So instead of taking 30%, now you take 60%. Now, you can argue, well, that's not worth it. But to some people, that might be worth it to say, hey, I wasn't going to deal with this anyway. I don't want to go out and try to sell this. I think about like old phones that you're always trying to get rid of. It's like, hey, if somebody gives me $100 for an old phone, they might have made $500 on it, but I wouldn't have. So just put aside the value on things in your own head and say, what's it really worth? Like if you want to sell something, think about what's the time worth to hang on to it. So that's sort of the general conversation that we have about this.
So then I'll launch into, thank you for that segue or taking that on. But now I'm going to tell you a real story of something that happened today and show you how I'm kind of putting these things into practice. So I got up this morning, took the kids to camp, and I had to run, and I actually have one person that does some work for me sometimes, and I pass some items on to her, and I pay her to photograph and list these items because I have such a high volume of stuff right now. So about once every week or two, I meet with her. I give her some new items, and she gives me back the stuff she's listed. It's all categorized and ready for when it sells. On the way back, I needed to stop by someone's house that I sell for. I've been selling for her for about 6 months. Most of her stuff is gone. Only 2 or 3 items left. The money's just barely trickling in. Now I think I owed her $80. So I was just like, I'm going to swing by there and drop it off. So I swing by. I see that she's out doing some gardening. She's actually across the street talking with a neighbor. And this is kind of a tight-knit neighborhood. I pull up. I walk up to her. Hey, give her money. Naturally, this person's like, what are you handing? She's like, you handing out money? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going door to door, handing out cash to everybody.
Do you need some money?
She's like, I could use some. I'm like, I bet you could. And so that's like a funny icebreaker. She's like, immediately we're all at ease, like we're just joking around. So the woman I'm selling for naturally kind of feels the need to explain to her who am I? What am I doing here? Tells her what I do, and this lady happens to be selling her house soon. And she's like, I'm already going through some stuff. I've got this really nice old Persian rug, and I've got these things. Would you sell? I'm like, well, some of this stuff is kind of outside the realm of what I normally do, but I'm happy to take a look. I quickly listed off the types of things. By the way, listeners, this is what I'm trying to focus on right now, moving forward, more of. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a slow process. But we're talking about jewelry, which doesn't surprise anyone, fine jewelry, costume jewelry, anything made out of gold or silver, so precious metals, sterling flatware, things like that, things like watches, pocket knives, these small collectible things. And then on the other tier, I will consider artwork and instruments because I know a lot about both of those categories. I also find them very interesting, and I repair artwork and I repair instruments. So not only am I interested in possibly selling those things, I can sometimes get good deals on stuff that's damaged, right? And I can repair it myself to add value because I know how to do that. I don't have to pay somebody else. So we had this kind of interaction, and that was great. I didn't make I get another consignee at that moment, but I made a connection. She asked for my card. I happen to have a card in the vehicle. Perfect. Give her the card. I wished I had more because I'm like, hand these out, But as I finished that conversation and I'm walking back to my car, here comes another neighbor walking by. And this lady I consigned for is like, oh, I should get a hold of her too. She hollers at her, has her walk over. I have the same conversation again very quickly. Next thing I know, she's taking me back to her house. She just met me. 5-minute conversation. Now this is sort of like I don't know, this is a little bit of, it would be a cautionary tale if we were talking about somebody else doing this, but I'm a pacifist. I'm very, I think I put people at ease. I'm a counselor by trade.
You also had an introduction from somebody that you've worked with.
I did. Someone, and she's like, he sold for me. So she kind of got that. But she's all of a sudden, I'm walking into this woman's house and she brings out coins. She brings out some jewelry. We exchange information. I text her. I send her the link to the eBay store that I would be listing this stuff on for whatever I list online. And I walk out of her house with probably $2,000 worth of inventory that fits in a little box in my hands. Beautiful. It is exactly
Perfect.
what I want to do. I want to sell this category of stuff. It takes up almost no space. It's highly collectible and valuable. It will not be difficult to sell it. It'll sell quickly. I can get her money fast. Perfect. Now we have a really good relationship here. It's yet another person that's willing to tell someone else. I'm going to start bringing cards to all these people I'm already consigning with, saying, hey, listen, no pressure. You owe me nothing because this has been, hopefully it's going to be good for you, but I think this is a good relationship. But if you happen to have a conversation and it comes up, feel free to give this out because I'm always looking for more people. So all that to say, I'm going to hold a few things up because I've already been back and sorted through it. That's the other thing. Sorting through it and categorizing it took 10 minutes. It's perfect. That's better than 6 tubs full of crap, that I have been dealing with. So,
well, let's wait before you start showing stuff.
Yeah.
The lesson here ultimately is to be flexible in your business, to be able to say you saw an opportunity in this might become the business.
Yeah.
So whenever you're out there doing whatever you're doing, if you're selling, you might say you become the expert in one certain type of thing. Don't overlook the possibilities of things that could become your bread and butter because you just don't know. You might be done on the road. I mean, to some degree, you might this might turn into the way you do business now. So I just think it's a really interesting, and it's because you were in the right place at the right time, and it's also because you had already developed these things. So if you're aware, if you're paying attention, things can happen. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and on top of that, I think what the next tier of, kind of this type of work might be for me is, shoot, maybe I invest in some little mailing cards. And I know this lady in this neighborhood. They're all kind of this, I would say, somewhat older demographic, upper 60s to 80s. I don't think it's a retirement community, but it's maybe something like that. This is the type of people who they're already retired, most of them. So they're on a fixed income and stuff, but they've got stuff that they've held on to forever. They're getting to that age where they're like, I don't want my kids to have to mess with this stuff. I've got a bunch of jewelry or things I inherited, stuff I haven't looked at. This stuff I got today, she said it's been in this box under her bed for 20 years. She's not looked at it. 20 years. Do you know how much gold has gone up in 20 years?
Right.
20 years ago, the average cost of 1 ounce of gold was $454, something like that, $445. It's $3,440 some today. So if she bought this ring for $120 20 years ago, and I say, hey, it's worth $450 or $500 today, she's over the moon about that.
Right.
And nothing happened. It was just time and the value of that going up. So this is the situation that I'm in. And so maybe I just send off some things I target some of these neighborhoods around here, and I send 20 here, 50 to that neighborhood, and I just wait to see if I get a text or a phone call. I mean, if I get one hit out of 100, maybe I spend 60 or 70 some cents on that, and I send 100. So I've spent $70. But then all of a sudden I get a call and someone's got all these coins, all this stuff. It's worth it. It's worth it. So, and I don't have to go and spend a huge budget on marketing and stuff. So word of mouth, this kind of thing. And if I'm not stuck with hundreds of items that don't sell and take up a lot of space, if I'm getting these higher value things that are smaller that I can liquidate, get them their money fast, all the better. More happy customers leads to more referrals.
Absolutely.
So, this little baggie right here, it's just a little baggie, but it's full of some earrings, a ring, and a necklace. They're all 14 karat gold. So I weighed this This little baggie is worth about $680 in gold, in spot gold weight. On top of that, I have a few other pieces, like a really cool necklace bracelet ring set, which is 800 silver. So sterling silver is 925, 92.5% silver. 800 is only 80% silver. Antique stuff, a lot of times from Germany, Austria, and Europe back in the Victorian days and a little bit after, that was common to have 800 or 80% silver jewelry. And these have cameos, none of them are damaged. That set's probably going to sell for between $150 and $200. And then I got some sterling silver flatware, a few other pieces of jewelry, rings, some brooches. This is about 280 grams of sterling silver. And so I'm probably going to be making somewhere in the 200 range. So this stuff alone, she's looking at somewhere between $900 and $1,000 of money that will sell for. Now, I'll take a percentage, but she's still going to end up with $700 to $800, and it will have taken like 3 days. I mean, I could go to a refinery tomorrow and have that money deposited and call her up and say, "Hey, are you ready for some money?" And that's awesome. That's why I like that kind of stuff, because I can liquidate it very quickly.
And it was just under her bed.
Under her bed. Another thing she pulled out was this little watch. It's a vintage women's watch, but it's a Gucci brand. I was excited about this because I've sold a couple of these in the past. I already knew this is about a $200 to $300 watch. It's a little worn, but still fine. But, these high-end brands, a lot of times there's a lot of counterfeits out there. So I get this, I pop it up in the back. Oops, Thailand movement with just a little battery. This is a replica. This is a counterfeit. So that was a downside. I had to say, hey, your mom's watch that you thought is not. I'm so sorry. And we had kind of a laugh. That's the risk, is that sometimes people, it's both, right? There's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I don't think this is worth anything. Oh, are you kidding me? It's worth that? Or like a disappointment. I thought this. Another thing we can talk, and I think we should devote an entire episode to this, is that I got this large coin collection from someone in the last couple of months to sell.
Yeah, we're doing that next episode.
It was awesome. It was a person who passed away, so we can't speak to this individual. I've sold a few pieces, and I won't get into it, but the teaser here is that I've uncovered one of the largest, certainly the largest I've ever seen, but I've taken them to a couple of coin shops as well, and their eyes popped. One place wanted to video it for themselves, but they're all counterfeit.
Really?
Almost all of them are counterfeit, and I mean, we're talking coins that range from the late 1700s all the way up into the 90s, and all different denominations: 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent, quarters, half dollars, dollars. We're talking like Morgan dollars, quarters.
Well, do you think they collected them because they were? Well, save it. This is fascinating.
We don't know. Story. But yes, I will talk about the possibilities.
Let's get into this next episode. But
all I have to say, that happened today, and this is kind of my vision. My vision is, I'm going to say, I'm stopping on big items. I'm stopping on items that are worth $40, $50 or less. It's not worth my time. If it takes 6 months to sell that, it's just not worth my time anymore. Not saying it's not worth yours, listener, or it's not worth you paying someone a percentage to sell that stuff for you. But where I'm at, and my time and my monetary needs and the things I enjoy doing, trying to get back to more of what I enjoy doing and learning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale back. I'm going to not one category, but I'm going to drop, let's say, 1,000 categories down to like 8. So that's a big move for me. And I'm going to do some targeted marketing that won't cost a lot of money, operate off of referrals, and try to get some stuff that I think instead of being like, well, if I can sell this in 60 to 90 days, that's above the curve for things on eBay. No. I want to try to get down to 30 days. 30 days or less selling things on consignment for people. Not to say that I'll always be able to do that, but I'd like to see a path. I'd like to see an obvious path when I look at the item and say, yeah, I think I can move this. And I think that if I can do that, get people some good money. The other piece is I'm probably going to raise my rates slightly. I'm not going to do a 50-50. This is why I like staying at a 60-40 as the highest. Me taking 40% is because the industry average for consignment stores is 50-50. Why do they do 50-50? Well, they make a good amount, but they also have more overhead. They have to pay for rent and all these things. I don't have to do that. So what I would love to be able to say to people when I'm doing my pitch is, look, I do 60-40. yes, that seems a little high, but I don't have the brick and mortar, but I'm doing this at a cheaper rate than any consignment shop you go to. So I can undercut any other consignor. Number two is that I do all this work for you. I come to you, I get it, I bring it back, and I'm kind of a one-stop shop here. And I can sell this stuff really fast. And with precious metals, things like gold and silver, because I sell to a refinery, among other places, I can beat the coin shops, the jewelry stores. I can beat them by 15 or 20% of what they'll pay you. So like, why, to me, that's a no-brainer. Okay, I make a better percentage than a consignment shop. A jewelry store or a coin shop is going to pay me 61 to 65% of spot for gold and silver. You're going to pay me 80%? Sold. I want to be able to say, look, I come to you and I beat everyone else's prices. To me, that's a pretty good pitch. And at the same time, I'm getting to refine my process and I become more and more knowledgeable in that niche. It just makes me more efficient, makes me more knowledgeable, makes me better at what I do for those things.
So what I think I'm seeing and hearing today is a chrysalis. I believe that what I'm seeing is that Matt has entered into a cocoon.
I was an ugly caterpillar.
He was an ugly caterpillar roaming about the streets, frightening small children, and he is now going to become a beautiful butterfly.
Or a dark brown moth. We're not sure yet which one it's going to be, but we're hoping for the butterfly.
We're hoping it's the butterfly. We're hoping it's the beautiful magenta butterfly that is Matt. I think that what we are seeing, no question, is the transition, or what's the word I'm looking for when an animal changes? The metamorphosis.
Yeah.
The metamorphosis.
The phoenix rising from the ashes.
Rising from the ashes. And I think that there is something very powerful in this. I look at this as an episode that we will hearken back to as an important part of anyone's business. Like, where do you find that? And it could take, by the way, Matt's been doing this for a long time. And I feel like in the last little while that he started to really say, this is what I want to do. So I think that's really cool. Remember, folks that are out there, keep sending the emails, keep commenting. We really appreciate it. Follow, like, and subscribe. I say that every single week. We do really appreciate you guys. Matt, any last words of wisdom before we head out?
In the next 2 minutes, I would like to share a handful of things that I sold, and this is going to be rapid fire because I don't want to leave those people hanging. I sold this watch. It's a vintage watch. It's got a little kid with it looks like a hat, but it's a Coca-Cola bottle cap that looks like a hat on his head.
Nice.
This sold for $24. It's not working. It works. It just needs a new battery. It still sold for that. I sold this tiny little, it's a crown for a pocket watch. The crown is the part at the top of the pocket watch that you use to wind the pocket watch. And it is a Hamilton branded railroad watch, pocket watch. And it's NOS, new old stock, meaning it's an old thing, but it's never been used. So it's new in the sense it's not been used. This sold for $32, and I got that in with a bunch of other watch and related things. Those will be selling slowly over time for a while. Here was something I kind of liquidated. It had been around for quite a while, and I knew I could sell it for more on eBay than at a refinery because they don't weigh a lot. I did a lot of 3 antique Victorian stick pins and 1 ring. They're all 3 of the 4 of them are 14 karat gold. They incorporate diamonds and small sapphires, and then 1 is made out of platinum and it has a diamond in it. But this sold for $678 yesterday and only weighs about 6 grams. So by weight, it's only worth about $200 and some dollars. But because of the age and the stones, it sold for more than that. And then finally, I sold this camera bag, and inside is a Canon EOS Rebel G, which is several models back. It's an older camera, and it is
Andre Agassi,
but it is a millimeter camera. It's not a digital camera, so it does take photos with actual film. And this sold for $50, which isn't a lot, but everyone's using digital these days for the most part. So I was happy to move that on. That was a consignment item. The point is, there's a lot of stuff out there, folks. And listen, you're catching me at this transition time. Who's to say I'm not willing to do consignment for someone that doesn't live in my area? If you hear this and you're like, shoot, Rusty, Matt, I wouldn't mind getting a turnaround on some of my jewelry and coins in a week's time. Email us. And we'll start a conversation.
So what's sold podcast@gmail.com is a good place to go. Well, that is all the time we have for today. I feel like this show's just been packed with bears and jewelry and
It has been packed with
and
bears.
chrysalises.
That's right.
That it feels like a magical episode to me. So have a great week, everybody. We will be
Take
back
care.
with a brand new episode next week. Take care.